What does the acronym A11Y stand for in web development?
A11Y is a numeronym for accessibility, a plus 11 letters plus Y.
What is the difference between web accessibility, A11Y, and usability?
Accessibility means people with disabilities can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the web. Usability is the broader quality of a design being easy to use for everyone, including those without disabilities.
Which four disability categories does WCAG primarily address?
Visual, auditory, physical/motor, and cognitive/neurological disabilities.
Name the three conformance levels defined by WCAG 2.1.
A, lowest, AA, mid, and AAA, highest.
What is the WCAG 2.1 minimum contrast ratio for normal text at level AA?
4.5:1.
What is the WCAG 2.1 minimum contrast ratio for large text, greater than or equal to 18 points or greater than or equal to 14 points bold, at level AA?
3:1.
What is the WCAG 2.1 minimum contrast ratio for normal text at level AAA?
7:1.
What are the four core principles that organize WCAG guidelines?
Perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust.
What does the Accessible Rich Internet Applications (ARIA) specification do?
It defines roles, states, and properties that can be added to HTML so web content and applications are more accessible to assistive technology users.
What is the first rule of ARIA?
If you can use a native HTML element or attribute that has the semantics and behavior you need, use that. Do not add ARIA roles, states, or properties.
What is the third rule of ARIA?
All interactive ARIA controls must be usable with the keyboard.
What is the fourth rule of ARIA?
Do not use role equals presentation or ARIA hidden equals true on a focusable element or on an element that has focusable descendants.
What is the fifth rule of ARIA?
All interactive elements must have an accessible name.
What is an accessible name?
The text or label that assistive technologies announce for an element, computed from native HTML labels, ARIA label by, etc.
In the accessible name calculation, which source wins between ARIA labeled by, and the native?
ARIA labeled by, ARIA label native label or label associated text.
What is an ARIA role?
An attribute, role equals, that tells assistive technology the type of widget or structure an element represents, e.g., role equals button, role equals navigation.
What is an ARIA state?
An ARIA ** attribute conveying a dynamic condition that may change in response to user action, such as ARIA expanded or ARIA selected.
What is an ARIA property?
An ARIA ** attribute describing a relatively stable characteristic of an element, such as ARIA label, ARIA required, or ARIA has pop-up.
What is a landmark in accessibility?
A role identifying a major section of a page so screen reader users can navigate to it quickly, banner, navigation, main, content info, etc.
Which HTML element is equivalent to role equals banner?
The element when it is a direct child of the.
Which HTML element is equivalent to role equals main?
The element.
Which HTML element is equivalent to role equals content info?
The element when it is a direct child of the.
Which HTML element is equivalent to role equals navigation?
The element.
What landmark role does map to?
Complementary.
Why should you avoid using role equals application?
It tells screen readers to hand normal navigation keys, tab, arrows, over to the web app, disabling many shortcuts and confusing users unless the app implements a complete virtual buffer mode.
When should role equals presentation, or role equals none, be used?
On a purely decorative HTML element whose children alone provide the semantics, e.g., a used only for layout.
What is the difference between role equals presentation and ARIA hidden equals true?
Role equals presentation removes the element from the accessibility tree but keeps its children. ARIA hidden removes the element and all its descendants.
Why must you never put ARIA hidden equals true on a focusable element?
Keyboard users can still focus it, but screen readers will not announce it, producing a focus trap to nowhere and an accessibility failure.
What is the purpose of ARIA live?
It marks a region whose content may change dynamically, so assistive technologies announce updates, with politeness levels off, polite, or assertive.
What is the difference between ARIA live equals polite and ARIA live equals assertive?
Polite updates wait until the user pauses. Assertive updates interrupt the current announcement immediately and should be used sparingly.
What ARIA role implies ARIA live equals assertive and triggers immediate announcement of a message?
Role equals alert.
What role announces dynamic status updates politely, like saved or loading complete?
Role equals status, implicit ARIA live equals polite.
What is the purpose of ARIA atomic on a live region?
When true, assistive tech announces the entire region on every change. When false, only the changed nodes are announced.
What is the purpose of ARIA relevant?
It controls which kinds of changes, additions, removals, text, to a live region trigger announcements.
What is a live region?
Any element with ARIA live, or a role that implies it, whose text content can change dynamically and should be announced.
What problem arises from compared to a real?
The div does not natively respond to enter/space, cannot receive focus by default, and lacks disabled and form submission semantics. All must be re-implemented with JS and tab index.
What is the purpose of tab index?
It controls whether an element is focusable and whether it participates in sequential keyboard navigation.
What does tab index equals 0 do?
Makes the element focusable via keyboard and places it in the natural document tab order.
What does tab index equals -1 do?
Makes the element focusable programmatically, e.g., via element.focus, but removes it from sequential tab order.
Why is a positive tab index, e.g., tab index equals 1, discouraged?
It jumps the element to the front of the tab order ahead of natural order, making the page order unpredictable.
What is the recommended way to implement a skip link?
An anchor at the very start of the page pointing to the main content ID, e.g., #main, placed as the first focusable element so keyboard and screen reader users can bypass NAV.
What does visible focus mean and which WCAG criterion requires it?
The focus indicator must be visible on every focusable element so keyboard users can see where they are, required by WCAG 2.4.7, focus visible, at AA.
Why is outline, none an accessibility anti-pattern?
Removing the focus ring without an alternative makes keyboard navigation invisible. Replace it with a custom, focus visible style instead.
What does the CSS pseudoclass, focus visible do?
Applies focus styles only when focus comes from keyboard or other non-pointer input, so mouse clicks don't show rings but keyboard tabbing does.
What is the minimum accessibility issue with a clickable that has no role, no tab index, and no key handler?
It is not focusable and has no semantics. Keyboard and screen reader users cannot reach or understand it as a control.
What is the role of ARIA has pop-up?
It announces that activating the element opens a pop-up and can specify its kind: true, menu, list box, tree, grid, or dialog.
What does ARIA expanded equals true on a button mean?
The disclosure, menu, or pop-up the button controls is currently visible/open. Screen readers announce expanded or collapsed.
What is the disclosure pattern?
A button that controls the visibility of a single region of content, using ARIA expanded, and often ARIA controls pointing to the region's ID.
What is the recommended ARIA pattern for tabs?
A tab list containing role equals tab elements with ARIA controls pointing to their tab panel, ARIA selected indicating the active tab, and each tab panel having role equals tab panel and ARIA labeled by pointing back to its tab.
How must arrow keys behave in a horizontal tab list?
Left/right arrows move focus and selection between tabs. Home/end jump to the first/last tab. Tab exits the tab list to the next focusable element.
What is the ARIA accordion pattern?
A group of button headers with ARIA expanded controlling a region with role equals region and ARIA labeled by pointing to the header that opens it.
What is the ARIA menu pattern?
Role equals menu with role equals menu item, or menuitem checkbox/menuitem radio. Children where arrow keys navigate items and enter/space activate them, an application style widget, not a site navigation list.
When should you use role equals menu versus a plain navigation list?
Use role equals menu only for true application menus, file/edit dropdowns. For site navigation, use a inside so the standard list/keyboard model is preserved.
What is the difference between a list box and a menu?
A list box, role equals list box with role equals option, is for selecting one or more values from a set and supports ARIA multi-selectable. A menu is for commands/actions.
What is the standard ARIA pattern for a modal dialog?
Role equals dialog with ARIA modal equals true on the dialog container, ARIA labeled by pointing to the title, focus moved into the dialog, and tab trapped inside until closed.
What is a focus trap and why does a modal need one?
A technique that keeps keyboard focus within the dialog while it is open so tabbing cannot reach content behind it, which is inert.
What does ARIA modal equals true tell assistive technology?
That the rest of the page is inert while the dialog is open, so the user should not be navigating outside it.
What is the inert HTML attribute used for?
Inert, an HTML attribute, marks content as non-interactive and hidden from assistive tech, complementing focus trapping in a modal.
What is role equals alert dialog?
A dialog used for an urgent message that requires confirmation. It inherits ARIA live equals assertive so the message interrupts the user.
What does the combo box pattern look like?
Role equals combo box, or a reel, with ARIA expanded and ARIA controls pointing to a role equals list box of role equals option children. ARIA active at ascendant or roving tab index tracks the focused option.
What does ARIA active at ascendant do?
Lets a composite widget keep DOM focus on the container while announcing a virtual focus on a child element identified by ID.
What is the difference between ARIA active at ascendant and roving tab index?
Both indicate the current item. With ARIA active at ascendant, focus stays on the container. With roving tab index, focus itself moves among children via tab index equals 0 on the current and tab index equals -1 on the others.
What is the purpose of or wrapping an input in a?
Associates the label with the form control so clicking it focuses the control and screen readers announce the label as the control's accessible name.
What is the difference between ARIA label and ARIA labeled by?
ARIA label takes a string as its value. ARIA labeled by takes the IDs of other elements whose text becomes the name, and can reference visible text, supporting translation and updates.
When should you use ARIA described by?
When an element needs additional context announced after its name, e.g., a password input with format requirements, or a field with an inline error message.
What is the purpose of ARIA required equals true?
Indicates a form field must be filled in before submission, announced as required by screen readers.
What is the purpose of ARIA invalid equals true and when should it be set?
Marks a form field as failing validation. set dynamically on submit or after the user leaves the field with an error, so the screen reader announces invalid entry along with the error message.
What is the standard pattern for a progress bar?
Role equals progress bar with ARIA value no, ARIA value min, ARIA value max, and ARIA value text when the value isn't a simple number, e.g., loading 45%. Omit ARIA value no for indeterminate progress.
What is the difference between role equals progress bar and role equals status?
Progress bar announces a numeric value that changes. Status is a general polite live region for short textual updates like saved.
What is the role equals timer used for?
A live region showing time remaining or elapsed, announced as a timer when ARIA live equals off is set, otherwise behaving like a status region.
What is the difference between role equals alert and role equals alert dialog?
Role equals alert is a non-modal live region that announces a message. Role equals alert dialog is a modal dialog that requires a user response and interrupts the user.
What is the ARIA grid pattern?
Role equals grid container with role equals row children and role equals grid cell, or column header / row header. Inside, arrow keys move between cells, home/end jump within a row, control plus home/end jump to the first/last cell.
What is a tree widget in ARIA?
A hierarchical list where each item can be expanded/collapsed. Role equals tree with role equals tree item children. Right arrow expands or moves to the first child, left collapses or moves to the parent.
What is the ARIA pattern for a tooltip?
Role equals tooltip on the pop-up. The trigger has ARIA described be pointing to the tooltip's ID, appears on hover and focus, hides on blur/escape.
How should a tooltip behave on keyboard focus?
It must appear on focus, not only on hover, because keyboard-only users have no hover. Hide it on blur or escape.
What does the role equals switch represent?
A two-state toggle, on-off, with role equals switch and ARIA checked, distinct from a checkbox because it implies an immediate effect rather than form submission.
What does ARIA checked equals mixed indicate?
That a checkbox or minutum checkbox represents a tri-state value where some but not all child items are checked, e.g., select all with partial selection.
What does ARIA pressed indicate on a toggle button?
Whether a button is in the pressed on state, used for buttons that act as toggles, bold, italic, rather than one-shot actions.
What is the difference between ARIA pressed and ARIA checked?
ARIA pressed is for buttons that toggle, ARIA checked is for checkboxes, switches, and menu items with a checked state.
What does ARIA disabled do, and how is it different from the HTML disabled attribute?
ARIA disabled equals true marks the element as disabled to assistive tech but does not prevent user interaction. The HTML disabled attribute removes interactivity. Prefer the real disabled attribute when possible.
What is ARIA current and what values can it take?
Indicates the element represents the current item in a set, page, step, location, date, time, true or false. Common for current page on NAV links.
What is the purpose of ARIA controls?
Points to the ID of an element that the current element controls or affects, e.g., a button that controls a menu's ID, or a tab that controls a tab panel.
What is the purpose of ARIA owns?
Declares a parent-child relationship in the accessibility tree that doesn't exist in the DOM, e.g., reparenting a tooltip into a dialog tree.
What is the difference between ARIA controls and ARIA owns?
ARIA controls indicates an element affects another. ARIA owns establishes a logical parent-child relationship used to build the accessibility tree.
What is the danger of changing reading order with CSS without ARIA Floto or source order changes?
The visual order no longer matches the DOM order, so tabbing and screen reader navigation become confusing and the page fails WCAG 1.3.2, meaningful sequence.
What is the difference between role equals article and a plain element?
Role equals article can be added to any element to mark it as self-contained content, but a reel already has that semantic and is preferred.
When should you add role equals region to a section?
When a section is a significant area of the page that screen reader users should be able to navigate to and it has an accessible name, otherwise it is not exposed as a landmark.
What is the pattern for an accessible table?
Use a reel with and. Use ID/headers for multi-level or irregular tables.
What is the role of scope on a?
Scope equals call associates the header with all cells in that column. Scope equals row associates it with all cells in that row.
What is the alt attribute decision tree for?
1. Purely decorative. Use alt equals. 2. Conveys information. Use alt describing it. 3. Functional, link/button. Use alt describing the action, not the image. 4. Complex. Use short alt plus a longer description.
What does an empty alt equals on an image do?
Tells assistive technology to skip the image as decorative. The image is still rendered visually but is not announced.
What is the alt text for icons pattern?
For an icon button, give the button an ARIA label, e.g., close, and mark the icon span ARIA hidden equals true so the icon is not double announced.
Why should you not rely on the title attribute for accessible names?
Title has poor support as an accessible name, is not exposed consistently across screen readers, and is only shown on hover, so keyboard and touch users cannot use it.
What is the visible label is not equal to accessible name anti-pattern?
Showing users sign up with Google visually but coding the button with ARIA label equals Google, the screen reader announces a different name than sighted users see, which fails WCAG 2.5.3, label in name.
What is WCAG 2.5.3 label in name?
For any control with visible text, the accessible name must contain that visible text, case insensitively, so voice control users saying click sign up hit the right button.
What is the impact of the prefers reduced motion media query?
Users with vestibular disorders or motion sensitivity can opt in to reduced motion via OS settings. Sites should disable or minimize non-essential animations, parallax, autoplay video, inside it media, prefers reduced motion, reduce.
What is prefers color scheme used for?
Detects whether the user has requested light or dark mode, so the site can offer a theme with sufficient contrast in both modes.
What is the WCAG 2.4.3 focus order requirement?
Tab order must preserve meaning and operability. It should follow the visual reading order and DOM order. Don't use positive tab index to fix order.
What are WAG's link purpose requirements? 2.4.4.
Every link's accessible name should make its destination clear out of context, e.g., read the accessibility guide, not click here.
What is the button versus link decision rule?
Use a link when activation navigates to a new URL or fragment. Use a button for actions, submit, open dialog, toggle, without navigation.
What is the standard accessible error handling pattern for forms?
On submit, set ARIA invalid equals true on bad fields, associate each with an error message via ARIA described b, add an alert live region summarizing errors at the top, and keep focus on the first error or summary.
What does role equals ing require for an accessible name?
An accessible name, via ARIA labeled by, or alt on a related element, is required, otherwise the image is announced as image with no description, failing 1.1.1.
What is the heading hierarchy rule?
Headings should not skip levels when going from H1 to H3 without an H2, because screen reader users use heading navigation to skim. WCAG 1.3.1 and 2.4.6 apply.
What is the WCAG rule for headings and labels? 2.4.6.
Headings and labels must describe the topic or purpose of their section or control. Vague labels like more without context are not enough.
What is the accessible name failure for an icon-only social link?
And containing only an icon and no text, with no ARIA label, results in screen readers announcing just link or the icon's role. Fix with ARIA label equals Twitter or visually hidden text.
What does ARIA described be do for form errors?
Associates the input with a separate error message element so the screen reader announces the field's name and the error, e.g., email, invalid entry. Please enter a valid email.
What is the accessible carousel pattern?
Use a tab list pattern where slides are tab panels and selectors are tabs, with previous/next controls, an autoplay toggle, and a pause/play button. Provide live region announcements for slide changes.
What is the role equals group used for?
Wraps a set of related controls that should be perceived as one unit, paired with ARIA label/ARIA label by to give the group a name, e.g., a radio group font size.
What is the standard pattern for a radio group?
Role equals radio group container with role equals radio children, each radio having ARIA checked. One radio must have ARIA checked equals true at all times. Arrow keys move between radios.
What is the difference between role equals radio and role equals menu item radio?
Radio is the WAI ARIA radio button, used inside a radio group. Menu item radio is a radio-like item inside a menu, where arrow keys move and space toggles.
What is the pattern for a toggle button, e.g., bold?
A with ARIA pressed equals true, false, announced as pressed or not pressed by screen readers. Avoid using a checkbox styled as a button.
What is the role equals search landmark?
Role equals search, or a / with an accessible name, marks a search region so screen reader users can jump to it directly.
What is the navigation landmark?
Role equals navigation, or A with an accessible name, marks a navigation region. Use ARIA label/ARIA labeled by when a page has multiple elements so each is distinguishable.
What is the accessibility tree?
A parallel tree to the DOM that browsers exposed to assistive technologies, derived from the DOM plus ARIA, listing accessible nodes with their roles, names, states, and properties.
Why is it important that custom components use semantic tokens and are tested with screen readers?
Visual styling, e.g., making it look like a button, doesn't change the accessibility tree. The role and behavior must be set correctly for screen readers to announce and operate it.
What is the focus visible rule for custom components?
Every interactive element must show a visible focus indicator, via a focus visible or a manual style, and that indicator must have at least 3:1 contrast against the adjacent background. WCAG January 4, 11.
What is ARIA role description used for?
Overrides the screen reader's default announcement of an element's role with a custom string, useful for custom widgets like a split pane where slider is misleading.
What is the recommended pattern for sortable table headers?
A inside A with ARIA sort equals ascending, descending, none on the, and ARIA label like sort by name, currently ascending.
What is the difference between role equals list and?
Role equals list on a non-list element exposes it as a list to it. A reel is already a list. Don't add role equals list to a to fix list announcements when CSS has stripped the list semantics.
What causes screen readers to stop announcing A as a list?
Removing role via display, contents on a flex parent or via certain CSS resets can break list semantics. The fix is to restore the proper role.